And I can remember them pointing the gun at me and saying, "We're going to kill you." And my dad protesting because he said, "If you shoot him, we're all going to go to jail." And he was really, I can remember him being distraught. Now he's a kind of a tough guy, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's what stood out to me was he was really scared because he knew that if they just shot me, that's not something he could explain to anybody. And he had gotten into so much trouble with trying to get rid of me already, but there's the Chevy van incident, there's the pool incident, and then there's the stairs incident, and all of those generated a police report. In addition to that, we went down to Panama City, Florida, to the beach, either Panama City or Destin, and they took me to a riptide area. I didn't know it was a riptide area. There were no other people on the beach. It was just us. But within like 100 yards, 150 yards, there's the regular beach where people were at. You know how they have the riptide zones. They don't want you out there, right, for obvious reasons. Well, they took me to one of these zones and had me, say, "Hey, come out here and play in the water and this and that." And for the first few minutes, it was just the three of us playing in water, and I'm just a kid. Beach is awesome. So, at any rate, they go back in. I'm out there playing. Eventually, that current gets me, and I don't know how to swim at this point in my life. So it pulls me out, 100 feet maybe, and I'm bouncing up and down off the sandbar, just screaming my head off. Well, somebody that was on the regular beach, not in the riptide area, heard the screaming and came running from like 150 yards away, and right by my parents who were standing there. And he goes out there and gets me, fishes me out. By the time he comes back, he's nearly exhausted. And I can remember him and my dad nearly fighting. And at this point, there are other people that are coming, and that scares the shit out of my dad. But there was another police report with that, and I know that police report followed us back up into Alabama because the sheriff came down there and talked to my dad in Alabama. So there was another investigation for sure. So all of those things had already happened, and my dad was terrified that if something happened to me, especially so close to all of these other things that all of these other investigations, he pretty much knew he was going to go to jail over it.
So there was at least the Chevy van incident, pool incident, stairs incident. There was police reports. How many police reports? About 3 or 4. And then
that that are just involved in trying to get rid of me. And then there were, in addition to those 4, there were 2 investigations. One for the porn, and then when we lived in the duplex and they were torturing that girl to death, Samantha. Our duplex neighbors there in Enterprise, Alabama, they called the police because they could hear, screams and beatings and stuff like that. And when they investigated, I can remember my dad saying, "Hey, talking about me is just, I had gotten in trouble and got a whipping or something." And they did an investigation. They collected blood samples and everything from the house, but the problem was they couldn't determine how long that blood had been there, I guess. And it wasn't a match to anybody in the house. So for whatever reason, they just didn't have enough. And I don't think they were allowed to talk to me. I think my dad would have had to give them permission for the investigators to interrogate me. So I don't recall ever giving testimony as a child. Not to the police in that instance or in the instance up in Tennessee.
Did you provide any testimony to the police in any of those 5 cases? Well, the one case with the military, with the child pornography, you.
I can remember the sheriff talking to me at the beach in Panama City, and I don't remember what all was said, but I can remember my dad tried to get out of there, and the guy that went and fished me out my dad's a pretty big guy, and he can fight, but the guy that went and got me was he was a tank. So it wasn't something that he wanted to really get into a fight about over there. And people started coming in, so my parents, I can remember them trying to hug me and stuff. Oh my God, thank God. I can remember the guy that fished me out. They said, "There's no goddamn way." I heard that from 150 yards away, and you're standing there watching him, and you didn't hear it. And they tried to play it off like, well, we just thought he was playing, swimming and stuff like that. And I can remember the sheriff asking, "Do you know how to swim?" And I said, "No, sir." And they were like, "Okay, this fucking sucks. There's no way that this is legitimate." And I can remember the sheriff in Alabama talking to my dad and saying, "There better not be anything that happens to him." He said, "Because I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you're going to go to jail. I don't care." He said, "I'll make sure of it."
So they had a sense, but they didn't know. They didn't have enough of what they thought of as evidence to be able to do anything.
That's exactly right.
And that was the case with Samantha as well?
Yes.
And your dad wouldn't let them talk to you? Dad wouldn't let the police officers talk to you. So
right.
That also seems weird.
Block that, he did. Huh?
It seems weird. I mean, I know in Canada is a bit different, like in terms of, there would have been folks from Child Protection Services there, and they would have gotten you away from your adoptive fathers to talk to you. You wouldn't have gone through that sort of horror in Canada. I'm really sad that's what occurred.
At one point, CPS did take me, so I got into the foster care system, and ultimately, I'm just gonna. I was ungovernable, incorrigible, as at that point in my life. If you said something to me, I didn't necessarily. I didn't care who you were. I wasn't necessarily going to do that, and I might just hit you, because that was just my response to life at that point. So eventually I made my way right back to that house. So I can tell you that throughout the process of trying to work with me, Jane Goodall was one of the people that worked with me. So I know that she is still alive. I think she's still alive. I think she's 91 now.
Yeah.
And she might recall having worked with me, because I would have been one of the strangest cases she ever had. Because at around that time frame, I had made the decision that I would no longer let anybody get within arm's reach of me. And if they did, I'd fight for my life. So, people had to stay away from me. I could talk. I mean, I wasn't like a feral animal, but I just would not allow people within my personal space anymore. And because of her work, with apes and everything, with gorillas, they kind of reached out to her to make contact with me to see if they could help me.
Yeah. And did you talk to Jane Goodall at all about what you'd experienced getting trafficked? I know when you and I spoke by email, messenger, you said was from during about 1978 to 1986 is what you remembered, 9 to 13, but you're not sure it could have been as early as 6 or 7 years old.
Right. I don't really start remembering what was going on until about 10 or 11. And I just know that it happened before that. I can remember being sexually assaulted by family. That's some of my very first memories. So, but as far as taking me to other places and these parties and whatnot, I know that sort of thing was happening, but I just don't have a good enough recollection to really piece together much of a story.
So whether you were 6 or 7 years old or 10 or 11 years old with the parties? When you
Right.
Okay.
I know family was assaulting me, and then friends of family were assaulting me as early as 6 or 7. I know that. Some of my very first memories are of being assaulted. But as far as taking me to places to make money at these parties, I don't have a clear recollection. It may have happened as early as the first sexual assaults that were happening with family, but I don't have a clear recollection if that was going on to that scale at that time, but do have a recollection from about 10 or 11.
Okay. So, how much?
I know it's
No, it's okay. I'm I'm glad you and I are able to have such a thorough discussion, and I appreciate again how straightforward and forthright you are. You know, it's extremely important.
I mean, there's a part of me that just wants to point fingers in every direction, but I have really thought about, okay, what do I recall vividly enough that that I would put my hand on the Bible in a courtroom, raise my hand, and say, "Yep, that's the truth." And what I am as close to 100% certain that if you put me on a polygraph, it would come back just as perfect.
Yeah.
So there are other things that I could maybe point fingers at, but then it kind of gets into muddying the water because I don't really remember them that well.
Well,
So
I think
that's why I've just stuck.
Yeah, no, that's good, and I think what I'd like to do, like, we'll continue discussing a bit about what we're talking about now. The things that you're less sure of, I'd like to look at a second a conversation just entirely focused on what you're not sure of, just because I think there is some important information there, but I don't want to muddy the waters in terms of what we're speaking about now that you are willing to testify in a court of law about. So let's continue focusing about any of the details about what you're willing to swear to in a court of law. And then, then let's look at, I would maybe look at, say, a second discussion and any follow-on questions from this discussion. Or I might just look at getting everything transcribed. And I'm just going to look at it raw, because honestly, in terms of, there's obviously thousands and thousands of pieces of video footage, film that the FBI took, that's all gone into some whoever's been trying to profit off of is nonsense. So what I'm looking at, I'm thinking even a combination, like just a brief summary from me, like a paragraph, and I'll even look at just publishing the raw audio file of our discussion with the text messages, because I think the context is really important. I think especially because there's been so much collusion regarding copy editing of video footage that, folks that are really that are genuinely wanting justice, for them to just hear the audio recordings and read the text messages is plain as day. Anybody that experiences an ounce of integrity will be able to discern the truth. And I think it's so important.
And I kind of wanted to discuss one other thing, too. One kind of theme at these parties that seem to be very very well thought out is they would have a larger party in the beginning, right? And in these larger parties, you might have, say, a couple of fights or some drug use or things that were kind of, let's say, mildly illegal. But the parties would go on for multiple days, and as the thing wound down to the smaller inner circle in the last day or last 2 days or whatever, that's when the really horrible shit happened.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the people that attended the party, possibly even people like Clarence Thomas or Lindsey Graham, may have been involved in lesser things, but then were also at the same time and place where these more horrible things happened, but they didn't necessarily participate in those more horrible things. So that seemed to be an underlying theme of and this is just me speculating here as an adult, where they would try to get these affluent people in all of these positions of power and influence to come participate in these parties where all of these things were going on, so that, if Clarence Thomas, I'll just use him, if he was there at the party, well, then surely nothing, that nefarious could be going on type of situations.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be very well thought out how they kind of did things. But as the party wound down, that's when people in my position would really begin to get scared, because that's when either we're going to get assaulted and maybe really busted up, or, even watching somebody die is really fucking horrible,
Did you see anyone else die besides Samantha and Patricia?
Yes.
Yes.
So I watched a grown man get beaten to death. He had done something that pissed off the people that were running it, and they killed him. I saw another girl, in addition to Patricia, when I was making the film with the girl, they came in and shot her while we were having sex. That was some sort of snuff film.
Yeah.
And then in the brothel, there were two people that got killed. Sarah killed herself, and then a girl, I don't remember her name, she was shot and killed, and then another girl was also shot and killed.
Okay. And all of these... No, go ahead.
Me and Samantha having to clean up. We didn't have to do anything with the body, but I can remember me and Samantha had to clean up the blood and everything from both Sarah's suicide, which was an assisted suicide. Samantha actually shot Sarah, but Sarah wanted her to do it. She just couldn't pull the trigger herself. So Samantha did it. I was in the room when she did. But it wasn't a murder. Samantha didn't murder her. Sarah I can remember her just saying, I can't go to another party. I can't be here. Please.
Another of the victims, I don't know if you've read about, the British woman, Sarah Ransom, was on the Epstein Island and tried to swim off the island and was willing to drown than go through another.
Yeah,
torture.
It's some horrible shit.
Yeah.
And I can remember the hillbillies that my dad sold me to when I was small. They were mean, but I can remember the meanest motherfuckers are those rich people. They are just demonic, Trump included.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you some questions there again. So with the rich folks that you were sold to, that was all associated with the Epstein-Trump trafficking ring. And you said to me you thought
yes.
Trump ran things with Epstein. Is that true?
Oh, yes. He was not just a client. He was one of the people that facilitated all that stuff. It was almost like, and this is just my childhood brain piecing it together, it was almost as if Epstein worked for Trump. And not just Trump, but him and maybe 6 or 8 other super rich guys. So
do you remember
Epstein ran it
at
the behest of Trump and that circle of people. So it was just I couldn't tell you how many people, but he was the only one that I remember that was at that level. But it wasn't that Trump was a John visiting, Epstein's empire of child victims. It was Trump was in a position above Epstein. It was as if Epstein worked for Trump.
Yeah.
And the rest of those ultra rich guys.
Do you remember?
It's like he ran that ring for them.
No, I understand. So Jeffrey was sort of presented publicly as the ringleader of the pedophile ring, but Jeffrey was basically behaving like a general manager of the ring. And then there was 7 or 8 other individuals, such as Trump, that were actually actively running the ring, micromanaging, telling Jeffrey what to do.
He would give Epstein that caliber of person, because it wasn't just Epstein. Epstein had people that worked with him too on a lower level that would go like find runaways and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they got the people. I can't say that, but you know, it was this whole thing was being run as for those rich people.
Yeah. I want to ask some more questions in terms of your sense of like the demonic. Some of the advisor work I've done, some of my own specifics of law enforcement, you know, I've come into contact, I've minimized any content with, I'm familiar with a lot of really horrific horror stories that involve Satanists, occult practitioners, theistic Satanists. You know, I've spoken to folks that were able to get out of the theistic Satanist cults. A lot of the torture techniques you describe are similar to theistic Satanist torture techniques. Sexual torture, human trafficking, human cannibalism, and what I want to, you know, what's your sense in terms of these parties that what do you remember? Like, was there any overt? I know a lot of the attendees presented themselves as Christians, but their practices are full blown demonic, satanic. Do you have the sense that any of them were actually secretly practicing any sort of occult rituals, or were they just like rich, fiendish, fake Christians that just didn't experience a conscience?
I think it's the latter. Just rich, fake Christians. I can tell you one thing specifically that Trump did, and that I remember vividly. I was exhausted. I couldn't fight back, and he sat on my chest and would choke me until I was unconscious. And each time that he did it, he'd say, "I'm going to kill you." So, and then he would choke me until I was out. And, you know, he did that, you know, half a dozen times or however many times. And I can remember him saying, "I thought I killed you that time. I'm really going to do it this time," and then choke me again. So he would just do that over and over again until he got bored of it. So
did you get the sense that he was trying to kill you, or just to torture you about the thought of killing you?
In the moment, you think you're going to die.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that he wants to see the fear in another human being's eyes that thinks that he's killing them, you know?
Yeah.
But looking back, I just think he was just torturing me. You know, I think if had he wanted to kill me, he could have. You know, he could have just kept choking me until I was gone. Because I did get choked until I was unconscious. I don't know, as many as half a dozen times, maybe more.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the type of thing that he would do, or worse. You know, I believe, I wouldn't swear to this, but I believe that on that instance, my dad had told him, "Hey, you can't bust him up. You can't break stuff." You know, because all his CPS bullshit.
Yeah.
So, and I want to say he was upset at the end of that too because of the bruising. You know, they didn't break bones or anything, but you know, obviously I had bruising around my neck and different bruises on my body, and that's something else too that I'm just remembering right now as I'm talking to you. At least one instance, the school nurse got CPS involved, I believe, in both Tennessee and Alabama because of the bruises that I showed up to school with.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, my parents just said, "Hey, he's clumsy, you know, he fell out of a treehouse," or whatever excuse they gave, you know. But there was It was looked into, but obviously nothing materialized from it.
Okay. So, let me see. Can I call you back in about 10 minutes?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure I've got the recording set. You know, I want to get into a file folder and get some duplicates, and then I'll call you back, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Talk to you in a minute. Bye-bye.